Imagine thinking you know someone completely, only to realize they are hiding secrets that could destroy everything. My wife started acting strange, going out late, dressing differently, and avoiding my questions. I thought I was losing my mind, but the truth was worse than I could have ever imagined. What I discovered turned my life upside down. This is a story of betrayal, shocking twists, and a decision that could change everything. You will not believe how it all ends. It all started at a volleyball game of all places. Back then, I was in my final year at university in Manchester, playing as an outside hitter for our team. I was good, maybe too good. My spikes were deadly, my blocks unstoppable. We were playing against a team from Leeds, and it was a blowout. I should have been focused on the court, but then I saw her. Emma. She was standing in the Leeds crowd, barely paying attention to the game. She had this carefree energy about her, laughing with her friends like the match did not matter. I could not stop glancing her way, wondering who she was. After the game, which we won, by the way, there was an after-party right there in the gym. Music blared, and the lights dimmed just enough to turn the court into a makeshift dance floor. My mates were hyped from the win and encouraged me to join in the celebration. "Pick a girl, man," they joked, but I only had eyes for her. I caught her standing by the bleachers, and to my surprise, she did not seem impressed by the guys surrounding her. Taking my chance, I walked over and asked, "Care for a dance?" She looked at me like she was trying to figure me out, then nodded with a smile that felt like a challenge. We danced the whole night. Her friends were not happy about it, but Emma did not care. When the music ended and people started leaving, I offered to walk her home. She told me she lived in a flat not far from the Leeds campus. Felt like fate. That night, I learned that she was smart, driven, and somehow still down to earth despite being the type of girl every guy wanted. We exchanged numbers, and I thought it would end there, a fun night and nothing more. But one date turned into two, and before I knew it, she was a part of my life. By the next year, Emma had moved in with me in Manchester. I worked part-time building websites while finishing my degree, and she started an internship with a finance firm. Everything seemed perfect. We were happy, or at least I thought we were. But if life has taught me one thing, it is this. When things feel too perfect, there is always something lurking in the shadows. A year after graduation, Emma and I packed up and moved to her hometown of Brighton. It was her idea, but I was fine with it. I did not have any ties keeping me in Manchester, and I thought it would be nice to live near the sea. Her parents were waiting for us with open arms. Well, open arms for her, not so much for me. They were the kind of people who had everything figured out, or so they thought. Her dad, David, owned a successful property development company, and her mum, Margaret, acted like the queen of the local social scene. They greeted us with a housewarming gift, a small modern home in a quiet neighborhood. It was beautiful, sure, but it did not take long to see the strings attached. David and Margaret were polite, but their smiles never reached their eyes when they looked at me. I was the guy from up north, the one they clearly thought was not good enough for their daughter. Still, Emma seemed happy, and that was what mattered. Emma started working at her dad's company as a financial analyst. Meanwhile, I was freelancing from home, building websites and small business tools. It was not glamorous, but I was good at it, and it paid the bills. First, everything seemed normal. We settled into a routine, and I convinced myself that her parents' subtle digs did not bother me. But after a few months, Emma began to change. Started small. She would come home later and later, claiming that work was crazy. She would go out with friends I had never met, dressed like she was auditioning for a nightclub commercial. When I asked her about it, she laughed it off. "Do not be so uptight, Liam," she would say. "It is just a bit of fun." One night, she came down the stairs in a black dress so tight and revealing that I barely recognized her. "Whose birthday is it this time?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "Just an old friend from uni," she said, slipping on her heels. "You would not know him." I frowned. "Emma, do you not think that dress is a bit much? I mean, it is just a birthday, right?" She rolled her eyes. "Liam, stop being so old-fashioned. I am allowed to dress how I want." Before I could say another word, I heard the beep of a car horn outside. "That is my taxi," she said, grabbing her bag and heading for the door. I sat there, staring at the door after it closed. Something was wrong, and I could feel it in my gut. But instead of confronting her, I poured myself a drink and told myself I was imagining things. When she stumbled back in at 2 in the morning, reeking of alcohol and barely able to walk in her heels, I knew this was not just in my head. The next morning, over coffee, I asked her straight out, "Emma, what is going on with you? You have been acting so different lately." She gave me a blank look. "What are you talking about?" "Last night," I said. "The birthday, the dress, coming home drunk. You never used to be like this." She sighed and set down her coffee. "Liam, I cannot sit at home every night. It is boring. I just wanted to have a little fun with some old friends. What is the big deal?" I stared at her, searching for the girl I had fallen in love with, but all I saw was a stranger. The weeks that followed felt like living with a ghost. Emma was there, but not really. She spent more time out than in, and when she was home, we barely talked. It was like she had built a wall around herself, and I was on the outside trying to figure out where I had gone wrong. Her late nights became more frequent, and so did the arguments. I would ask where she was going, and she would brush me off with vague excuses. One Friday night, she left in a bright red dress that screamed anything but casual. I asked if I could come along, and she laughed. "You? With my friends?" she said. "They are not really your type, Liam." She walked out without another word, leaving me sitting there, alone and furious. That night, something in me snapped. I had ignored my gut for too long. I needed answers, and if Emma would not give them to me, I would find them myself. When she left again the next evening, I opened my laptop. I was not proud of what I was about to do, but I felt like I had no choice. Her father, David, had a reputation for controlling everything, and I had a hunch that he knew more than he let on. I had worked in IT long enough to know how to get into places I should not. It took less than an hour to slip into the network of David's company. I was not looking for anything in particular, just a clue, something to confirm the sinking feeling I had been carrying for weeks. What I found was worse than I had imagined. I accessed a live feed from a camera in David's office. He was sitting with Margaret, and they were talking about me. "Emma will come to her senses soon," Margaret said, sipping her wine. "Liam is not the kind of man she needs." David nodded. "Give her time. Pushing her too hard might backfire. Let her keep up this charade a little longer. Once she sees that her future is not with him, she will leave on her own." My stomach turned, but it was what David said next that truly broke me. "At least she is spending time with someone like Oliver," he said. "That is a man who knows how to handle himself. Liam? He is just a placeholder." Oliver. I did not know anyone named Oliver, but the way they said his name made it clear he was no stranger to Emma. I closed the laptop, my hands trembling. They had been planning this all along. Her parents never wanted me in the picture, and now it seemed like they were winning. When Emma came home hours later, stumbling in like usual, I did not say a word. I had no energy left to fight. Instead, I started packing. By the time she woke up the next morning, I was gone. When I left that morning, I had no plan, no destination. I just needed to get away from everything. From Emma, from her parents, from that suffocating house. I threw my bags in the car and drove until I ran out of excuses to keep going. I ended up back in my hometown, a small, quiet place called Ashford. It was not much, but it was familiar. My sister, Sarah, still lived there with her husband, Mark, and their 2 kids. When I knocked on her door, she looked at me like I had come back from the dead. "Liam, what are you doing here?" she asked, her voice a mix of surprise and concern. "Can I stay for a while?" I said simply. Things fell apart. Sarah did not press for details, at least not then. She just hugged me and told me to come inside. Mark offered me a beer and a spot on their old sofa, and for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. The next day, Sarah insisted on helping me figure things out. "You cannot just sit here and mope," she said. "You are too good at what you do to let this stop you. There are plenty of businesses around here that could use someone like you." She was right. By the end of the week, I had a freelance gig fixing the IT system at a local manufacturing company. It was not glamorous, but it was work, and it kept me busy enough to stop replaying every argument with Emma in my head. Still, I could not completely escape her. Late at night, when the house was quiet, I would wonder what she was doing. Was she with Oliver? Had she moved on already? And why could I not let go, even after everything? I got my answer 2 weeks later, when a car I did not recognize pulled up outside Sarah's house. I was in the kitchen, cleaning up after dinner, when Sarah called out, "Liam, someone is here to see you." I walked to the door and froze. Standing on the porch, looking awkward and out of place, was David. "David," I said, my voice colder than I intended. "What are you doing here?" He shifted uncomfortably. "I know I am the last person you want to see, but this is about Emma. Can we talk?" "Emma?" I asked, my chest tightening. "What about her?" "She has changed," he said. "Since you left, she has cut us out completely. She quit her job, stopped answering our calls. She even broke things off with Oliver." Hearing that name felt like a punch to the gut, but I kept my face neutral. "Why are you telling me this?" David sighed, looking genuinely troubled. "Because she is looking for you, Liam. She told us that she wants to fix things with you, but she has no idea where you are. I am here because, well, I think she might actually mean it this time." I stared at him, unsure whether to believe a word he was saying. This was the same man who had called me a placeholder, who had done everything he could to push me out of her life. And now he wanted me to give her another chance? "Tell her I am fine," I said flatly. "But I am not interested." David looked at me for a long moment, then nodded. "If that is what you want. But Liam, people make mistakes. Sometimes they deserve a chance to make things right." As he walked back to his car, I felt a mix of anger and confusion. Was he just trying to manipulate me again? Or was there a part of him that actually cared about Emma and me? I went back inside, hoping that would be the end of it. But deep down, I knew this was far from over. A week passed, and I tried to push David's visit out of my mind. Work kept me occupied, and Sarah's house was always alive with the chaos of 2 young kids. It was the distraction I needed. But then Emma showed up. It was a Saturday afternoon. I was fixing Sarah's fence when I heard a car pull into the driveway. I looked up, expecting to see Mark or one of their neighbors. Instead, it was her. She stepped out, dressed simply in jeans and a sweater, her face bare of makeup. She looked different, softer almost. I dropped the hammer in my hand and stared at her, unsure whether to be angry, relieved, or both. "Emma," I said finally, my voice tight. "How did you find me?" "Your dad told me," she said, her voice quiet. "I know I should not be here, but I needed to see you." I sighed and leaned against the fence. "Why? What could you possibly have to say to me after everything?" She took a deep breath, like she had rehearsed what she was about to say 100 times. "I was wrong, Liam, about everything. I let my parents control me, let my friends fill my head with lies. I pushed you away, and I will never forgive myself for it. But I want to try to make it right." I crossed my arms, fighting the mix of emotions swirling inside me. "You want to make it right? After the nights you left me wondering where you were? After Oliver?" Her face fell. "There was nothing with Oliver," she said quickly. "I swear, my parents were pushing me toward him, but I never let it go anywhere. I could never do that to you." I laughed bitterly. "You expect me to believe that? You dressed up, left me behind, and ran off to God knows where. And now you want to tell me it was all innocent." Emma stepped closer, her voice breaking. "I know I do not deserve your trust. I know I hurt you. But I swear, Liam, I never stopped loving you. I was just too stupid to see how much I was throwing away." I stared at her, searching her eyes for any sign of dishonesty. She looked like a completely different person, vulnerable, almost broken. And for the first time, I saw a flicker of the woman I had fallen in love with. "Why now?" I asked, my voice low. "Why are you here after all this time?" "Because I lost you," she said simply. And I realized you were the best thing that ever happened to me. Her words hit me harder than I wanted to admit. But could I really believe her? Could I risk letting her back into my life, knowing what had happened before? I ran a hand through my hair, unsure what to do. I do not know, Emma, I said honestly. This is not something we can fix overnight. I do not expect it to be, she said. I just want a chance. Please, Liam. Let me show you I mean it this time. I wanted to say no, to tell her to leave and never come back. But instead, I heard myself say, one chance. That is all you get. The relief on her face was immediate. Thank you, she whispered. I did not respond. I did not trust her yet, and I was not sure I ever would. But something told me I needed to see where this would go, even if it ended in heartbreak all over again. Letting Emma back into my life felt like walking a tightrope over a bottomless pit. One wrong move and everything would come crashing down. After that day, she stayed in town, renting a small flat just a few streets away from Sarah's house. She kept her distance at first, waiting for me to set the pace. We started slow, casual conversations, coffee now and then. She opened up more than I had ever seen before, admitting how much her parents had influenced her life and how she had let their opinions dictate her actions. She told me how, after I left, she realized how empty her life felt without me. It was hard to believe her at first. Part of me thought it was another trick, another manipulation. But she kept showing up, kept proving herself. One day, she asked me to come by her flat. She wanted to show me something. I hesitated but agreed. When I walked in, the place was simple, no luxury, no flashy decor. Just Emma trying to make a fresh start. She held up a stack of papers and handed them to me. These are the records of everything my parents gave me, she said. The house, the car, everything. I gave it all back. I stared at her, stunned. You did what? I did not want anything that tied me to them, she said. If I am going to rebuild my life, I want to do it on my own terms. It was the first real sign that she was serious. But I still had questions, doubts that would not leave me. Why did it take losing me for you to see all of this? She looked down at her hands. Because I was scared, she admitted. Scared of disappointing them, scared of making the wrong choice. But when you left, I realized I had already made the wrong choice. I chose them over you, and it destroyed me. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe that this was real, that she had truly changed. But trust is not something you can rebuild overnight. Over the next few months, Emma worked hard to prove herself. She found a job at a small accounting firm, far removed from the shadow of her father's business. She joined Sarah and me for dinner occasionally, helping out around the house and even bonding with Sarah's kids. Slowly, the wall between us began to crack. Then, one evening, she surprised me. Liam, she said as we walked along the seafront. I know I have no right to ask this, but I need to know. Do you still love me? The question hit me like a punch to the gut. I had spent so long burying my feelings, convincing myself that I had moved on. But standing there, looking at her, I could not lie. I never stopped, I said quietly. Tears filled her eyes, but this time, they were not tears of guilt or regret. They were tears of hope. From that moment on, we decided to try again, slowly but deliberately. It was not perfect, and there were moments when old wounds reopened. But we both knew this time we were fighting for something real. Months later, as we stood together on the beach watching the sun set, I realized something. Sometimes the hardest battles are the ones worth fighting.